Hey there, I'm Mark from Spectrum Pulse, and today we have from the Weather Station Humanhood. When I reviewed the critically acclaimed breakout album Ignorance from Tamara Lindemann's project The Weather Station and On the Pulse in 2021, I struggled a bit to comment on why it got so much attention seemingly from out of nowhere. Now, some of it was pairing her literate but kind of meandering writing with more of a sophistipop structure, a great way to win over some critics who fawn over good taste and class without acknowledging some deeper problems in song construction or genre fusions. But some of it was just signing to a label with a bigger promo budget in order to get it in front of those critics. And some I would chalk up to the persistent phenomenon amongst critics where seemingly from out of nowhere and with little actual change in the band's sound, they might strike a chord and the acclaim tumbles in, the whole fluke indie sweepstakes thing. What I've often highlighted is that it rarely lasts beyond one or two albums. And when we got How Is It That I Should Look at the Stars a year later, kind of awkward title, but recorded around the same time as Ignorance and much more stripped down to piano and spare accompaniment, the acclaim and attention pretty much evaporated. I heard the album, I didn't cover it, because for as much as I like her writing, the arrangements were so bare bones that very little stuck in terms of the melody. But Humanhood promised to be different. Partially improvised, recorded with a larger band with plentiful overdubs, it looked to be expanding on the sound of Ignorance, maybe even going towards jazz, and that was exactly the direction I wanted to hear. And, oh wow, talk about the follow-through. Because while I think it's easily the Weather Station's most lush and layered work to date, it's also subtly the most heartbreaking. Because once you start untangling what the project's trying to say, it cuts deep. And we should start with Lindemann's vocals, because normally her hushed, breathy cooing can feel nestled a bit too deeply in the mix to truly grab you in the way of obvious parallel contemporaries like Laura Marling. And thus, it almost feels kind of inspired that thematically, this album uses that mixing as a strength in the haze of what I could only describe as dissociative. She can often feel like a passenger in her own stories, with her persistent struggle being to break free of it all. That was a through line on Ignorance, but it feels all-encompassing and near inescapable this time, also a little more personal. In interviews, Lindemann talked a great deal about climate change and climate grief, the psychological weight you can feel underneath it, the realization that it's just so much bigger than any individual effort. It's going to require systemic change, and that also manifests on the spoken word of Irreversible Damage, where in experiencing the vast wilderness, it becomes hard to grapple with the knowledge it's gonna be lost. Hell, so much has already been lost. But the framing adds a very striking angle. The acknowledgement of trauma, where it feels like being trapped in a borderline abusive relationship that feels all-encompassing, where your humanity winds up getting diminished, and where she is fighting to break free, get away of the protective dissociation from a self-obsessed partner in order to reclaim knowledge and humanity, no matter how painful and unkempt that all might be. But the path is not easy. Neon Signs highlights the parallels between that abusive relationship and capitalism, where all the advertising isn't just creating the need within you, but wanting to make you feel desired by them for your purchases. Nothing needs you so badly as a lie, relying on the honesty of lust, where both it and Mirror highlight how much you can feel like a shell of yourself against that monolithic force. And the album's progression shows the human struggle to break loose of that twisted myopia, just run, while also trying to find a way to forgive yourself for your own human moments of surrendering, giving in, especially on the heartbreaking body moves, or how Ribbon highlights how ordinary this pain can feel for everyone. And the second half of this album is breaking free of that gaslighting, trying to find normalcy, trying to heal, with the more personal stories of confrontation and difficult forgiveness coming later, because Lindemann is smart enough to frame real humanity among those who would seek to dominate and control, to fill the empty mirrors and voids within themselves, where there were simple joys, and you have to find them now alone in your own experience. And like with Ignorance, there is a little bit of myopia here. If you're going to tackle some of these larger systemic issues without much urgency or willing to point your fingers at the real culprits, hell, even the comparison of something more personal like abusive relationship, it can feel a little detached even with the dissociative explanation, but I think there needs to be a place to recognize and contextualize contextualize the emotions, the trauma in this way. So with the writing as strong and detailed as ever, what about the music? Well, the more lush orchestration is immediately more flattering to Lindemann's lyrical style, with the sharper guitar overdubs spilling over the pianos and MIDI flute on neon streets to drive that faster crescendo, where you also get more substantial crunch on the breathless gallop of Window, or the sax and flute inflected title track bouncing off that banjo. But it also translates to the subtler atmospherics accented by the saxophone on body moves, with that very deliberate groove before the synths disintegrate, or how the rumble of bass permeates the fizzy percussion and the shuddering horns on the fragmented Irreversible Damage, or how the closer sewing, for as gentle and soft focus and beautiful as it is, never allows the more imposing walls of synth and bass to fully wash away. I just wouldn't say it always works, mostly as the mixes are so prim that places where the jazzier melodies stumble can feel a bit awkward, like with the shuddering clank of the percussion around the clipped electric piano, guitars, banjo, and horns on Mirror, or the gentle percussion against the flutes and piano on Ribbon that seems like it's on the cusp of always stumbling. And while I like some of the atmospheric interludes peppering the album, they certainly do much for any sense of momentum, where on the back half it can kind of start dragging. But to summarize, I went into Ignorance in 2021 really loving the writing, just never being fully convinced the delivery or orchestration could fully flatter it. And 4 years later, Humanhood does just that. A superb layered fusion of themes infused with spacious, thoughtful mixes, with more propulsive grooves and stronger hooks, but also a mix that doesn't shy away from a more nuanced and mature, but very raw human resonance that gradually reveals itself. No, it's not the most immediate listen, and there is a level of mature density that's going to demand some patience. I just think it's excellent. Might fly under the radar in comparison with the last time the weather station caught all the attention, but it really shouldn't. This is special. Check it out. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you want to see more, please be sure to like, share, drop comments, subscribe. Yeah, this was a bit of a complicated one to fully untangle. I know I may have gone a little deeper than I previously thought I would, especially in comparison with Ignorance, but the material's there. I think this is really special. Beyond that though, anything else I may be able to do to improve my presentation, I'm all ears. And if y'all want to get involved in getting projects on my schedule, supporting the channel, just yelling at me on my Discord, link to my Patreon and my YouTube memberships is right over there. Please don't feel obligated. Tough times, I really get it, but the option's available. Till then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.